Hi, I'm Jeff Banks, the founder of Banks Consultancy, Not Your Ordinary Accountants, and these are our tidbits of the day. And as we are talking about getting ready for the 30th of June, there is a couple of strategies in relation to our expenses that we can look at to make sure that we bring forward expenses and therefore defer taxation into later periods. Now, if we're looking to prepay expenses, the general rule is that we can only be 13 months in advance. So if I have a look at my rent and say, well, okay, here's a potential for me to get a tax deduction. I can prepay my rent on my factory premises or my business premises up to 13 months in advance. Now, what that does is bring the expense from 2015 back into 2014, and I get the advantage of potentially enhanced cash flow from not having to pay the tax on the profit that I had. Now, what that does do, of course, is that if I'm 13 months in advance this year, that I don't have to pay my rent for the entire year next year, but I will have less tax deduction in next year. So it might be a double-edged sword. Now, if you want to talk to anybody about looking at these sorts of deductions and what have you, we at Banks Consultancy are here to help you in any way we can. Now, as well as the rent, there are other things that could be also prepaid in advance. The one that property investors like to look at is their interest. Now, they just need to be careful that the lender that they have used will allow for the prepayment of interest. If you've got a normal P&I type loan, then the prepayment of interest isn't an option, because all it will do is reduce the amount of capital that is in that loan, and thus reducing your interest deduction later on, but in the worst possible way. If you want to, like I said before, if you want to talk to anybody about any of this sort of stuff, please contact us here at Banks Consultancy on the number provided or at info@banksconsultancy.com.au, and we will run you through the concepts that you need to deal with. I'm Jeff Banks from Banks Consultancy, and we are Not Your Ordinary Accountants.